James Delingpole is a best-selling author, journalist, TV critic, Daily Telegraph. He also writes for so many other great publications. He's a British journalist and novelist, was educated at Christ Church, Oxford. He is a member of author of several novels and 2 nonfiction books. How to Be Right, The Essential Guide to Making Lefty Liberals History, and Welcome to Obamaland. I have seen the future and it doesn't work. He writes for the Daily Telegraph and is a TV critic for The Spectator. He has a blog, The Daily Telegraph, which he uses to disprove man-made climate change. And this is so exciting to have him on because he's one of the most prolific and detailed writers in the Telegraph. We got big headlines out about global government being established. We've got Gordon Brown. There will be nowhere to run from the New World Order. That's another great writer at the Telegraph, Janet Daly. We have another one, Copenhagen Climate Summit, plan for EU to police countries' emissions. And that's James Kirkup, if I think I'm pronouncing it right. So just great job over there at the Telegraph. And it's good to have James Delingpole on with us. Sir, wonderful to have you.
Thank you for having me, Alex.
I tell you, is it safe to say that the man-made global warming fraud has crashed and burned like the Hindenburg?
I think we shouldn't count our chickens. Obviously, Christmas came early for you and me, first of all with ClimateGate, and second with the spectacular failure of the Copenhagen Carbon Fest, love-in. But I think we've got a long way to go, because don't forget, we have got, 20 years since the warmists started putting about this story. You remember the Rio conference?
Yes.
Of course, was organised by your friend and mine, Maurice Strong. We skeptics have got a lot of catching up to do before we can undo all the damage which has already been done, all the lies and propaganda which are being put about by the mainstream media, all the mechanisms that have been put in place by Kyoto, for example, for carbon trading. You know, you've got the carbon trading floor set up in Chicago. You've got 10% owned by Goldman Sachs, for example. So you've got a lot of people out there who stand to make a lot of money out of this whole AGW thing, and they aren't going to surrender that money easily.
Absolutely. We have different numbers. Some say over $100 billion in the U.S. spent on this fraud and buying off the scientists, literally, because you can't get funding unless you believe in the Chicken Little scenario. Any idea how much globally has been spent by governments and corporations pushing this takeover?
All I know at the moment is that the global carbon trading market is currently worth about $120 billion. Now, this, don't forget, is trading something that doesn't actually exist, really. I mean, it's just thin air, isn't it? Carbon, CO2, we breathe it out. The idea that traders have created a mechanism whereby they can trade the stuff that we all exhale is Enron economics writ large. And funnily enough, the guy who invented CO2 trading was none other than Ken Lay, the guy who founded Enron. And this market, this false market, is estimated to increase into the trillions within the next 2 decades. So we are going to be finding that the world's most valuable traded commodity, even more valuable than oil or gold, is this CO2 thing. And the only way this market can survive is by pan-global government regulation. So, I mean, if America says no to cap and trade, that means that the bottom will fall out of the carbon trading market. And a lot of bad people, including Al Gore and I think Maurice Strong, will end up losing a lot of money, which is why I think it's very much in everybody's interest that we urge, for example, the U.S. Senate, when it votes next year, to vote out cap and trade, because that will be, I suspect, the real death knell of this great scam.
Absolutely. Now, Gordon Brown, the unelected Prime Minister of England that no one can seem to get rid of, he is saying, I'm writing the agreement that the industrialized nations have signed on, even if the third world got wise and bolted. that the West will give money to the IMF and World Bank, I guess, to dangle in front of the third world to sign on, which, of course, conservative estimates have it at $10 million a year extra that'll starve to death, who are living on that, that razor's edge between starvation and life. He's saying that they're just going to go ahead and implement it. Obama last week said, look, command and control. I don't care if the Senate doesn't ratify or go along. I'm going to use the EPA to declare CO2 as some type of deadly nerve gas. And I mean, so they're just openly coming out as dictatorial creatures. And now they say the EU, and break this down for us, the EU is going to now keep track of everyone. Even if you don't sign on, they're going to be your minder and hold back your IMF World Bank dole if you don't go along with it?
Well, the European Union, certainly the European socialist superstate, has been a very early adopter of the whole climate, the whole carbon trading mechanisms. They are forcing all the member states to reduce their CO2 levels by X amount by 2020, and the various libtard governments have mostly embraced this wholeheartedly. It's interesting that the European Union has form on this. Almost all the member states of the European Union, when on those rare occasions where their people have had the chance to vote on the issue about whether or not they want to be part of this ever-increasing socialist superstate, they always say no. What does the European Union do? It always says, okay, we're just going to ignore the voters' requests, democratic requests, and we're going to carry on as usual and ride roughshod over their desires. This practice is also being adopted by the AGW, the International Global Warming Movement. Never mind all the scientific evidence that emerges and is emerging all the time that global warming is not man-made, and even if there is global warming going on, it is not catastrophic. Never mind all scientific evidence. We are going to carry on with our program as before, completely disregarding. I mean, I don't know how. Presumably, all your listeners are on side, Alex, but the thing I noticed blogging on this subject on the internet is just how many people out there on the internet are feeling betrayed by their governments, by their newspapers, which are not telling them the truth about it.
And that was my next point. I read ABC News. I read literally hundreds of the comments. I don't even really read the story. I go to the comments, and the mainstream media keeps shoveling the lie that everyone agrees that the Earth is warming. Everyone agrees that polar bears are all dying, which is a total lie. Everyone agrees we've got to have a global government. And then literally 95% of the comments are saying we're sick of you liars, and they're well thought out. They're writing their own little mini articles with links to facts. There is a rebellion. I think the mainstream media, is this what you're getting at?
Yes,
the mainstream media is committing seppuku by continuing the party line.
Alex, your analysis is absolutely spot on. There is no question that this will be seen in the future when people analyse the death of the MSM. This will be the point where the MSM killed itself, because it has refused to move with the times. It's refused to address the issues that are of concern to its readers. I mean, unless you buy the idea that every single person, or 95%, as you say, of the people who use the internet are completely mad, unless you buy that theory, what you have to accept is that the interests of the people are not being served by, for example, the BBC, by pretty much every newspaper, like the New York Times, to the Times of London and so on. They are being completely ignored. All these newspapers, and of course the BBC as well, and of course most of the mainstream TV networks in the US, apart from possibly Fox, all these organizations employ environment correspondents. And all these so-called environment correspondents, they might as well, be writing press releases for Greenpeace or Al Gore.
They're lapdogs.
They never question the scientific issues. They're not interested in finding out the truth. All they care about is towing a particular line, which is the world is getting hotter. It's all our fault. We must spend more money now.
Unbelievable. Let's continue then talking about the seppuku. That's when, I guess, the Japanese term for when they commit suicide with the short sword. That is pretty much what the mainstream media has already got the knife in. They're now pulling it up into their rib cage, completing the act of seppuku. And all I can say is more power to them.
I think
we'll be right back.
For us, Alex.
Daily Telegraph writer James Delingpole is our guest. He's a best-selling author of nonfiction books like How to Be Right, The Essential Guide to Making Left Liberals History, and Welcome to Obamaland. I've seen your future and it doesn't work. And he writes for the Daily Telegraph and is a TV critic for The Spectator. He has a blog at the Daily Telegraph, which he uses to disprove man-made climate change. JamesDelingpole.com is the website. That's James Delingpole, D-E-L-I-N-G Pole.com. Okay, you got cut off by the satellite break. You were getting into the mainstream media committing suicide.